Lviv is Maria Tomak. She is the head of Ukraine's Crimea Platform Department at the Ukraine President's Mission in Crimea. Thanks very much for joining us. So we just saw this report of a family that fled Mariupol. I mean, Mariupol just the worst affected city in the sense that it's besieged. People can't even flee. I mean, we heard an attack on a bus convoy, empty buses going in by Russian forces. What are you hearing from people you know there?
Indeed, what we see in Mariupol is a disaster, is a humanitarian disaster, but what is important to say is that while shooting the convoys from Ukrainian convoys for the humanitarian sake, Russia tries to force people to flee to the territories that are controlled by Russia, to Russia itself, or for instance to the occupied Crimea, and then to make this staged video on how Russia is rescuing Ukrainian refugees, you know, that cynical thing. And when people come, for instance, to Crimea, Russians try to take their passports and to provide them other fake documents that people can not use them after that. And with these documents, they cannot even get to Ukraine after that.
So they're trapped in that Russian-controlled territory.
Exactly.
Let's talk about Kherson, because we have some video that we've obtained from people who took part in an anti-Russian occupation demonstration in Kherson. And we know that Russian forces there used live ammunition, and in at least one case severely injured one of the demonstrators. I want to put that on our screen for our viewers to see. What are you hearing from Kherson? We can see the Ukrainian flag there floating above the crowd.
I think it's important that even in those territories that are partly under the control of Russian army, people are still resisting. They go to the streets with Ukrainian flags, they sing anthems, they say that Kherson is Ukraine, basically, and they get the violence in response. And, you know, somehow it reminds me 1960s when people in Prague said, okay, Soviets go away, and Russians go away. So something similar is happening there, and I think that these people are really very courageous to do that.
But I wonder, these Russian troops and soldiers on the ground who probably were told that they were going to liberate Ukrainians, that they would be welcomed with open arms, I wonder what their reaction is to obviously opposition in the streets to their very presence there.
It's hard to say. I mean, we can assume what's the reaction from those press conferences that are held by Ukraine with those prisoners that are captured by Ukrainian forces. And we see that they are surprised because they're also being brainwashed that Ukrainian people are so much waiting for this so-called liberation that we're sized by Nazis here, and therefore we need Russia to come and rescue us. So probably they're also, to some extent at least, they're victims of this propaganda.
What is the morale like now about 1 month in? Because, I mean, obviously people are going to become more and more tired.
Yes, but also all the time I try to remind that we are being under the Russian attack for 8 years now. So it started in Crimea in 2014, but now it's very large scale, basically.
Right, it's a completely different picture, yeah.
Definitely, and lots of us are IDPs as well. For instance, myself, I'm an IDP now. So, and of course we're getting tired. Of course it's very complicated to live in the country which fights for its existence. But nevertheless, I don't think that there's even any chance that we are giving up to Russia. We're not going to do that, and it's very clear. And even though the situation is so hard in the places like Mariupol, in Kherson, I don't see the voices that call, you know, to surrender to Russia.
Yeah, because Russia is basically saying surrender or else in places like Mariupol.
Exactly.
But despite that, and despite the suffering, the population on the ground, which, by the way, ironically, this is a population that is a lot of it Russian-speaking, that may have had some sympathies toward Russia. They're being bombed by the very forces that say they're there to liberate them.
Yes, but you know, not all of those people who speak Russian are sympathetic towards Russia. It's very important to understand that many Ukrainians, maybe millions of Ukrainians, for whom Russian language is the kind of first language that they speak, that they use, they are like very pro-Ukrainian, pro-European, and pro-Western. So that's the point, and that's why Russia is failing, basically. politically because they don't understand that and they don't want to recognize that Ukraine is absolutely European country.
Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us with that, Maria Tomak. Appreciate having you on the program live. Ukraine's president